So in this phase, we're going to be talking about the neuroplasticity, but also how we can actually tap into our own brains and take ourselves through a worksheet that allows us to actually reframe something that happened. And so how does this work? Well, a good example of it is a guy named Viktor Frankle, Dr. Viktor Frankle. He was a psychiatrist that was in the Holocaust, and he actually was placed in a concentration camp. And it was very hard times for him. I mean, talking about starvation, talk about torture, talk about he was separated from his family, his daughter and his wife, and he knew that they were going to be killed, they were going to be starved to death. So he was having a really hard time. And he says that even some of the hardest times was when he actually left the concentration camp and went home, and thinking to himself that when he went back home, he was going to find the family that was completely destroyed by the war, and that if he rang that bell, somebody was going to come out just like in the old days, but only to find out that when he did that, there was nobody at home, there was no family. And he said that that was even harder than going through the concentration camp and surviving that. And so what he did was very important for humankind, I believe, because out of all of these, he came up with something called logotherapy. Logo meaning, the logo or the meaning of a company, and therapy, a therapeutic approach to actually helping somebody create a new meaning for a very traumatic and tragic event. And so this is what is called logotherapy. And there are different versions of this. And of course, there's different ways that psychologists actually arrive to these therapies. There is cognitive behavioral therapy, shamanism. There is many different ways to get to this point. But the main thing is that we can actually rewire our brain into getting a new meaning and then installing a new belief system after a traumatic event. And why is this important? Well, because many of us that have had chronic conditions actually have had traumatic events in our lives that we have not healed from, that we have not completely processed and completely gotten a new meaning from it. And I showed you this at the beginning of this course, and that was called the Kaiser Adverse Experience Study. And a couple of adverse experiences can raise our chances of having diabetes twofold. And so that's why it's so important to go through anything and actually reframe it. So if something happened, we need to reframe it. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how this happens and how we can actually go about it and do it.